Next up on our homepage is to insert our SMART goal section. And before I do that, though, what I'd like to do is pop back over to our design real quick and see what we're looking at. This is what we completed last time. That's our personal legend and our graphic to go with it. In our mock-up, you're going to see that we have this gray section right underneath the first top of our section up here. And how we're going to do that is we're essentially going to do the same type of process that we did for this container right above here. Remember, we added a second class to the main class and called it top. We're going to add the same type of deal, only we're going to call this one light gray. So let's switch over to our current design and then toggle over to Dreamweaver, and let's get into it. So I'm going to click on the style sheet here, and where I'm going to put this class is I'm actually going to end up putting it in what's called the global page attributes section up here. And I often do this like what I did with ClearFix up here. I often do this with classes that I can use just about anywhere that aren't specific to any one section. So I could use this light gray on text. I could use this light gray, in just about anywhere. So I'm going to type in hit the enter return key a couple of times after that closing curly brace underneath ClearFix. And I'm going to title this period. It's going to be class light dash GRY for gray, abbreviate that, and then BG. So light gray BG, and then open up a curly brace and then hit the enter return key. So I bring that down a line, and I'm going to target the background color, and I'm going to go ahead and write this the full length out. So it's background color, and we're going to go ahead and use the RGBA. We're going to use RGBA instead of the hexadecimal or like just the straight named colors, because I want to make this a pretty light gray, and I want to adjust the transparency of it to make that work. I've tried different combinations of this before, and for some reason this is the best. This is kind of like the lightest, best gray that I can come up with in this way. So RGBA parentheses, and this gray is just basically 215, 215, 215. So that's what gives us the base gray, and then comma, and then 0.60, so 60% transparency, and then move your cursor at the end of the parenthesis there, and then hit the semicolon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and now I can pop over to the source code to our HTML page and put in that section and then apply that class right away, so rather than applying it later. So what I want to do is I want to locate that last main section that I created and find the closing main tag of main class main top. Okay, place my cursor after it and hit the enter return key, and I'm going to go ahead and open up a new main tag. Now, I'm not sure if this is what you would call like good design or good coding or not, if everything should be under the main tag. I'm going to end up using it again. And the reason for that is because I like to think of the way I think of it in my brain is as I'm building out sections, I'd rather have them housed in sections rather than in just one large, container. It's a little bit easier to find later on, and kind of keeps it nice and neat that way. But that's just me. I'm sure it's probably not the right way to do it, but that's the way I like to do it. So I'm going to type in a left caret here, main class main again, okay, and then spacebar, and this is where we're going to apply that secondary class of light gray BG. So this is what allows us to essentially keep styling with some of the same classes that we've created, and not creating totally new ones when we want to alter the design just slightly. So that's really, really powerful. Again, we need to do our same style of laying out. So we're going to start with a row. So we're going to go div class row, And we haven't come across, hang on, let me redo that, div class row. We haven't come across in our design yet any columns. So far we've only had the single column layout. So we haven't had to insert any columns yet. That'll be in our next section when we get to those feature containers that we create at the bottom of the homepage. So div class row, and we will build this out. We'll essentially do this as the whole thing. Think of this as one big chunk, one big area in a table. So we're not going to do this in multiple rows. You could if you'd like, but we're going to keep it all in just this one area. So I'm going to do an H2, and I'm going to make this title set the bar high and go for it. You can create whatever heading you want in there, and then we're going to introduce the heading 3 tag here. So we have kind of like our main subheading, main heading there, and then we have a subheading that goes underneath that, and this one is going to start off with the short term goal. And remember, we did a short term, middle term, and then long term kind of goals, our intermediate and long term. I'm going to go ahead and write all of those out now, so that way it's easier to do the kind of the simpler things first. Like if you're thinking about organizing this, I know I have 3 headings, so I'm going to go ahead and type those in now. So somewhere in the middle, that's my second for my intermediate term. Oops, wrong tag. Getting ahead of myself. H3. There we go. And this one's down the road for the long haul. Got the total trucker lingo going on. Okay, so next we need to put in bullet points or number list for each one of these, and each one of these has 2 goals to that, so it's really short. We could do these as paragraphs, but I like the way this looks with a numbered list, and it makes more sense when you're doing this pretty consistently with the short term, midterm, kind of thing. So I'm going to place my cursor after that first H3, the short term heading, and hit the enter return key. And then I'm going to tab in. And the reason why I like to tab in is, for me, this is just a visual thing. It doesn't actually do anything in terms of the code. Just for me, it makes it easier to read later on and signals in my head that this is a list that follows like a subheading. On a coding level, it doesn't make sense to actually tab this in because it's all kind of on the same like block level element. But for me, like readability wise, I like to see this, and it's just easier to find later on if I need to change it. So we're going to use what's called the OL tag. This stands for ordered list, and this will signal that we're creating an ordered list. And inside of an ordered list, you have list items that need to go in there. So to create a list item, we use the li tag. So I'm going to type in li and then hit the right caret key. We have 2 of these. We have 2 of these in each one of these sections. So I'm going to hit the enter return key here and then type in another li tag. So to save some time, I know that this structure right here is going to be repeated in each one of my sections here, in each one of these goals. So rather than typing these out every single time, I'm just going to grab that little chunk of code and hit Command C, and then place my cursor at the end of that H3 in the second goal section, hit the enter return key, tab in, and then Command V or Control V, and do the same thing for the third one, so I save myself some time in typing. Then next, all I need to do is bring in my goals, and you should have these on a Word somewhere, on a Word document somewhere. I have these already pulled up, and you guessed it, I use a Lorem Ipsum filler text. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that now, and you can't see that, it's off screen, but trust me, it's there. And I'm going to come back over here and then paste that in there. Now I'm just going to use the same Latin text for all of these examples, for all of these goals, just to save time so you guys don't see what those are, and we'll just pop those bad boys in there just like that. Okay, and that pretty much rounds out the content, the HTML part of this section. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and let's go ahead and preview this, how this is going to look, because it's going to look ugly, and you're going to want to see the changes that you see later on down the road. Remember, we already did the H2 up in here, so that is just getting the same styling. our gray boxes in there. Notice that it's slammed right up there on the bottom of our footer. Don't worry about that right now. We will be adding, spacing or another div tag to go in there below that. So just be patient with that. The thing that you'll notice right away is that our bullet points are off the page. They're not showing, and that's because we cleared out those padding and margin values very early on. We should probably check out what it looks like in a mobile view. So let's go ahead and scroll that down, and that's where we're going to start anyway. So we're going to go ahead and look at it from this point of view. So let's go ahead and style we need to style the H3 tag, we need to style the OL, the ordered list tag, and we need to style the list item tag for this section. So we're going to tab back over and then click on our style sheet. And this time we're going to scroll all the way down and look for that main styles section. And the first element that we need to address is that H3 tag. So beneath that H2, that curly brace where it closes, hit the enter return key and type in period main H3, and then open up a curly brace. And here's what we're going to apply. We're going to go ahead and give it padding, 0 on top, and then 2 pixels on the left and right. Now, the reason why we do it on the left and right is just in case, for some reason, if our heading 3 ever is long enough to span that 350 pixel width, so it doesn't slam all the way to the right. So that's why we just do it in left and right. Take care of it. I want to go ahead and add a little bit of style to this tag. So I want it to go uppercase. I want it to transform to uppercase. Just to separate itself out a little bit from other subheadings. And then the other thing, usually this is what I like to do. When I uppercase something, then I will reduce the font weight. So most headings in HTML, like they come with some preset attributes. And one of those attributes is font weight. And a lot of times it's just set to bold. So what I like to do is mix it up a little bit. If it's a heading, I like to give it the uppercase treatment, and then at the same time reduce the font weight to something that's very light. In this case, I'm going to reduce it to 400. Now the lightest would be 100. That would be pretty light, but I want it to look a little bit lighter, but it'll still have an impact because we're going to uppercase everything, and so that'll look pretty good. And then I'm going to add a border on the bottom, and this border is going to span that width of whatever container it's in. And so I'm going to do 1 pixel solid, and then I'm just going to use the name, the color picker name, black. Now, I like this a lot. I like using borders on the bottoms for subheadings. You're going to have to be mindful, though, when we're, since we're taking up a heading 3, this is a pretty popular heading to use a lot of times in a design. And so if you're not comfortable with using a border on the bottom a lot in some of these cases, it'll force you to do 2 things. A, you could either create a unique class that would include that border bottom, and we could certainly do that. Or we'll just end up using more heading tags, and we might end up in a scenario where we have a H3 and an H4 that are very similar. Like the H3 might get the border bottom treatment and the H4 may not. It just kind of depends. So we could create that special class, like I said, and that might be the way to get out of that, because we are limited by how many H's we can use. There's not an infinite number of headings, and we wouldn't want an infinite number of headings in the first place. But as you start designing, you start running out of those different types of ways to make text look good. So headings are one of those ways that makes it easy, but there's only 7. You can only use 7 different types of headings, and so then that starts to run out pretty quickly. So just be mindful of how you're applying styling to your piece. All right, following the heading 3, we need to style the OL tag and the LI tag. And I like to do things in order. So I've got my H2 in order, I've got my H3, and a paragraph should follow the heading. And then in my opinion, anything that's an ordered list or an unordered list should follow a paragraph. So I'm going to place my cursor after that curly brace and hit the enter return key and type in main. And then we're actually going to apply this styling to both the OL tag and the UL tag. And that way we're going to save some space and time later on if we need to use a UL tag, which is an unordered list. To do that, we need to hit the comma key right after OL and then the space and then type in main again and UL. So basically what we're saying is these two classes with these two tags, two different tags, are going to get the same styling. So we're going to open up a curly brace, and that styling really is just about the margin on the bottom. We want a little bit of space between each like grouping of ordered list or unordered list, and we want that space to be about 10 pixels. Okay. Then next, we need to push our cursor down and hit the enter return key a couple of times, and then start with main li. So now we're targeting each list item within that group, within that ordered list group. And this is where we're going to apply some more detailed styling to that text. So we're going to open up a curly brace here, and this is going to be, we're going to apply some margin between each one of those items. And we're also going to make sure that the margin on the left is pushed in so that way we can see the numbers, because right now that's why we can't see the numbers. They're getting pushed off the page. So 5 pixels on top. Hello, I got to type in margin. There we go. Margin, we're going to put 5 pixels on top. And then 0 on the right, 0 on the bottom. And then, well, in fact, what we probably should do is sorry about that, go back. We're going to do 0 on the top, 0 on the right, but we're going to do 5 pixels on the bottom, kind of keep that consistent with the way we're doing padding and other things on some of the other elements. And then space. And then on the left margin, we're going to do a new, we're not going to do pixels, we're going to do 2 rems. Okay, so that's going to position it, that's going to kick it out from the left, so that way those numbers or those bullet points display properly on the page. And then we're also going to go ahead and give it that same letter spacing treatment that we did with our paragraphs, just to add a little bit of spacing and readability. Your call on using the letter spacing. If you don't like it, don't use it. Some types of font, the font that I chose, like for instance, I think needs a little bit more spacing for readability. But your call, if you want to use that, you can go ahead and take it off. Okay, so from here, I think we could probably go ahead and jump to the desktop query for our heading 3. So, and you notice we didn't do one for heading 2, because I think for heading 2, our design calls for keeping that pretty much the same. But our heading 3, I want to add a little bit of padding, because in our heading 2, we aligned our text to the center. So we don't have to worry about padding on the left and right per se, although we added it right in here. But in mobile view, our headings are left aligned. And so I want our headings to have that same padding value so they line up with the rest of our font. Now with our H2s, it's centered, so you don't see that. So our heading 3s need to have that same type of padding value so that they line up, so that it appears that they're on the same margin. So after the main paragraph tag, hit the enter return key, type in a period main H3, and then open up a curly brace, and then here we're going to add that padding value of 0 and then 5 pixels. So it's the exact same as up here. So we want that consistency throughout on all of our text. So go ahead and save that. Control C or Command C. Let's tab over to take a look-see. Hit the refresh button. Scroll down, and there is our heading 3 with that underline. So it looks really sharp in the mobile view this way. And notice there that we have our numbers, and that looks good. So let's go ahead and switch over to our laptop version, and also looks good. If you want to add a little bit of, say, like you could probably do it with the OL tag or even the UL tag, add a little bit of margin on the top or something like that. May not be a bad idea. I think it looks okay. We could experiment with that real quick. Let's go ahead and look at our main OL. We have margin on the bottom, but not margin on the top. So we could probably add that same type of value, although I think for me, I don't know if I'd want to do margin 10 pixels on the top. So if we do a margin top and just do 5 pixels, let's see how that looks. It gives it a little bit of space so it's not so slammed up against that line. And I think I'll go ahead and leave it there. Let's go ahead and leave that like that, a little ad lib to our design, which I think is always good. Okay, so next, our homepage is starting to look pretty good. Next is that bottom section with our 3 callouts that will highlight your showcase, your internship experience, and your college roadmap.